So like most people, I have now seen the new Star Wars movie. Twice. And overall, I enjoyed it. I thought there were some good things. I will probably grow to lament some of the bad things, like, say, the fact that the main villain is essentially the embodiment of teenage angst, or the rather large lack of anything in space. But on the whole, I did enjoy the movie. But I would not be me if I did not come across some peculiar things to comment on about the movie as a whole. So here goes. So to begin with, I want to talk about this First Order and the Resistance. The movie gives absolutely no explanation for who these guys are. In theory, the First Order are the remnants of the old Empire, as evidenced by their apparent motto, the fact that they were all human, the stormtrooper armor, the TIE fighters, and all of the old Empire technology. But the idea of them just being the remnants of the old Empire on its own doesn't seem to make any sense. The New Republic rules a significant portion of the galaxy, at least enough that the bad guys consider them to be their primary target, which tells us clearly that the Republic, and not the First Order, are clearly in charge. However, the First Order are constantly portrayed as being a major military threat to the galaxy, one that the Republic, who we suppose are the good guys, are not doing anything about. According to every side presented to us, the only people who are actually fighting against the First Order are the Resistance, who are financially at least supported by the Republic. But otherwise they share no affiliation with the Republic itself. I would today like to talk about what this probably means for the greater Star Wars universe. So let's break this down. If we assume that the Republic rules over a significant portion of the galaxy, if not most of it, then the first question that we have to ask is, what kind of rulership are we talking here? Are we talking an international galactic government, interplanetary galactic government that makes laws and controls economics and makes legislation and all those sorts of things, much like how most of our Earth governments work? Or are we talking something more like the United Nations, where you have a whole lot of these interplanetary governments existing all at once, with the United Nations, the Republic, basically being where everybody goes to have a vote on intergalactic issues? The Republic itself isn't necessarily allowed to directly affect the planetary systems, except maybe through recommendations and through politics. These are two very different systems, so I'm going to look at each of them and the impact that each of them actually represent. If we assume that the Republic has got direct control, sort of like how America is a singular nation under which it has many states, then either some states have declared complete independence, calling themselves the First Order, and the Republic, for whatever reason, isn't willing to start a war over it, or the First Order is actually more like the Republic's unwanted military remnant, who have got power within the New Republic by virtue of being a large organised body when there were no other available organised bodies, which effectively means that the Republic is built on top of the old Empire, and the First Order are sitting around and living because they've been allowed to continue living. To put this in a bit of perspective, imagine if Google and all its subsidiary bodies one day turned around and said, we are going to boycott everybody we don't like, and we are going to take action against everybody we don't like. And in the ensuing conflict, be it political, militaristic, whatever, Google lost, and they were forced to capitulate. However, despite losing the war, society relies so heavily on Google that it has been allowed to continue. It just is no longer allowed to rule. So essentially, the argument here would be, if the New Republic runs the galaxy, then the First Order effectively represents a large interplanetary body that they have to use, that it's functional. It's something they have to use in order to function, and they simply are not able to get rid of it. So that's if the New Republic is like modern government. Either they're stuck with the remnant of the past, that despite winning the war, they haven't been able to demilitarize, or it's like they're stuck with a coalition of states who have refused to conform, and even though they're accepting Republic rule, they're still maintaining their own rule, within the Greater Republic. In both of these examples, you can see how the Resistance could fit into that. In essence, they're basically Anon or WikiLeaks, except with starfighters. But what if the Republic looks more like the United Nations? In that scenario, the First Order is actually nothing more or less than a rebranding of the old Empire, and the Republic either does not have the military power or the political authority to actually take them down. In essence, the Republic here doesn't rule so much as it advises or monitors, which means that after the events of Episode 6, the Empire consolidated their rule and let the Republic take the top job in return for them being recognised as a government body, as having a right to rule the planets that are under them. In other words, the First Order is a legitimately recognised interplanetary government body, and they get to vote on galactic issues along with everybody else who gets a right to vote. If this is the case, then the Resistance are quite literally a resistance or a rebel operation acting within the confines, within the territory of the First Order. They're fighting against an existing government from the inside, while other governments around the galaxy do nothing. And they don't do anything because politics says they can't. You would probably go on to argue that the Resistance would be painted as a terrorist organisation by the First Order to all of the other interplanetary governments. That could be another reason why the Republic doesn't get its hands dirty by outwardly proclaiming that they support the Resistance, because according to mass media, the Resistance are in fact terrorists. In either case, the resources required for the First Order to turn a planet into a superweapon without being stopped by the Republic or anyone else, or without even really being known beforehand, that sort of resource-based economics is staggering. So, the movies don't give enough evidence to clearly say which of these is the case, or if there is another option in how these bodies have actually been set up. Of course, the question being begged is, why is any of this important? Well, even though I significantly doubt that any of this will come up in the new movies and probably won't be relevant to the new movies, the rest of the galaxy has to be reeling from the events that just happened in the new movie, that the Republic has effectively been blown up. But there's a huge difference between losing your government and losing the United Nations. In one scenario, all the other interplanetary governments are still functional. They're still completely functional on their own. They don't have to worry about everything falling apart. The Republic, in that case, is effectively like the top hat that they go out to wear in order to actually partake in government politics. In the other scenario, the entire galaxy has just lost its spine. The government has been wiped out and everything is going to fall apart. And the only other system of government, the only doctors capable of performing the spinal surgery to repair the damage, is the First Order. I'll let you decide which scenario is more terrifying.